Shema Yasha'Allah Yahweh Allahayanawa Yahweh Chud. That's Deuteronomy 6:4. Bahala Shawan Kwadash. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who rule well and are worthy of their double honors. Peace and blessing to you, Aki, and pushing out this truth across the four corners during these last seconds of time. Kwam Yasha'Allah, Mighty Shalom. And this lesson is entitled, A Kingdom Divided Shall Not Stand. A Kingdom Divided Shall Not Stand. And this is based off of this article from Newsbreak app entitled, Politics Green Warns of MOTB. Green warns of MOTB. Gabbard cries deep state coup. So you have Republicans, Gabbard and Representative Green, all right, who both last week, or this week, all right, had an online dispute. But it furthermore improves the scriptures. This is Matthew chapter 12, verse 25. And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house against itself shall not stand. And that's exactly the scene that's set here in America. All right, you got Democrats versus Republicans. You got representatives versus other political leaders. All right, you got this party versus that party. Matter of fact, in this verse, I believe is going to say civil war. All right, any kingdom divided by civil war is doomed, because the word civil goes into citizens. All right, and that's what we're about to see: race wars, class wars. All right, gang wars. Okay, political wars. All right, economic wars, until this city of confusion be brought down. This is Matthew 12 and 25 in the NLT. On the right-hand side of the screen, it says, Yahushua knew their thoughts and replied, any kingdom divided by a civil war is doomed. And the word civil means citizen, all right? And that's exactly what's taking the scene upon the American streets, a war between different classes of citizens. And we're seeing one here, all right, which happened online this week between this representative, all right, and this Republican, this top Republican, okay? And it says, Matthew 12 and 25 in the NLT again, Yahushua knew their thoughts and replied, any kingdom divided by civil war is doomed. A town or family splintered by feuding will fall apart, all right? And let's go into this article ultimately to show how much division is going on, because the scriptures also speak of those two horns that spake as a lamb going into the Democrats and the Republicans, all right, which are the modern day plebeians and patricians of ancient Rome. You had the plebeians and the patricians. The plebeians were the modern day Democrats, and the patricians are the modern day Republicans, all right? But it says, verse 26, and if Satan is casting out Satan, he is divided and fighting against himself. His own kingdom will not survive. So let's read on. It says, noted Republicans DNI Tulsi Gabbard and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene both evoked conspiracy theories online this week. All right, and it's not a theory, okay? This is biblical prophecy. The scriptures say a kingdom divided shall not stand, and that kingdom is America. And we're seeing it being torn to pieces from its strongholds. Its strongholds and the things that kept the glue together here in America are being torn apart. All right, it's political parties, it's economic system, it's military. Everybody's fighting against each other, okay? Everybody's beefed out, okay? It says two high-profile conservative figures ignited backlash this week after sharing viral posts promoting unfounded and conspiratorial claims, one invoking governmental betrayal, the other end-time prophecies. You see, governmental betrayal, all right? The scriptures say that there'll be a sedition amongst men, all right? This is 2 Ezra 15 and 16. For there shall be sedition among men. I started 14. Salakia, woe to the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword and their destruction draw it nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. And it's saying here that one of these representatives, all right, was hinting at government betrayal, which sedition goes into that. Uprisings, uproars of the people, and one hinting at end-time prophecies, which both ultimately are biblical, Okay, Revelation 13 and 16, here in 2nd Ezra 15 and 16 we're about to read, they're all biblical prophecies, man. So the earth, all right, the people of the earth, the inhabitants, the Spirit of the Lord is poured out on them to speak of these things, man, all right, because it's the truth. So it says 2nd Ezra 15 and 15, for the sword and the destruction draw nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, race wars, civil wars, all right, a kingdom divided shall not stand. And we're on the brink of that, man. All right, we're at the point to where all these things are gonna pop off, man. It says, and swords in their hands. Verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And that's what we're seeing even in this article. All right, even these two top, as it says, noted Republicans, all right, and representative, they're speaking out on these things. Even that in itself, all right, is a shot to them not regard their kings nor princes, because as it says here, you got one that's speaking of end time prophecies, and you got the other that's going into government betrayal. So it says on Friday, former Representative Gabbard, who now serves as Director of National Intelligence, accused the former president of leading a coordinated coup to undermine the current president. So let's read down some more. All right. It says the Senate committee, which conducted a investigation, previously found no evidence to support claims of a conspiracy. It says she's not competent, says Senator Mark Warner at the Aspen Security Forum. And then this conversation even goes into the insight of how America is breaking down. All right, you got people who are going to conferences together. All right, they're attending these different meetings. All right, and these banquets to try to see how ultimately they're going to keep America's strongholds together. And then you have outbursts like this. She's not competent. All right, that was shouted out from another senator. Okay, it says on the same platform just days earlier, Marjorie Taylor Greene shared her own warning. It says this time about a cashless economy. So this is a noted political figure sharing these thoughts. All right. So now that you have the prophets that have been on the scenes on the highways and byways, all right, going into biblical prophecy, you actually have the earth, all right, the inhabitants thereof speaking out on these things. It says on the same platform just days earlier, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene shared her own warning, this time about a cashless economy, quoting Bible verses and referencing Revelation 13 and 16 through 17. Greene claimed that digital currencies initiatives like the Genius Act signaled the MOTB system, a biblical model that signals the end times. And I did a lesson a day or two ago just going into that Genius Act and how these different economists are alluding that the society is about to crash at any moment. And so is this representative. All right. It says she was even bringing out the verses, man. All right. She was bringing out the verses about it, man. Revelation 13, 16 through 17, man. So that shows ultimately that what the prophets have been saying out on the highways and byways are true. All right. The men of the Lord, yet in due time, will be made manifest and known. Also, it's showing that the spirit of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua has been poured out on the earth, man. You have Democrats and Republicans from these different parties now speaking of biblical prophecies. Because guess what? These Democrats and these Republicans, they're a part of biblical prophecies. All right? Matter of fact, let's get it. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 11. It says, and I beheld another beast coming out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And that's talking about this beast system. All right, America and its European allies, the NATO and the EU. Okay, America being that chief's coin city, like the scriptures say, that whore that sitteth upon many waters, those waters being nations of people. All right, those two horns that spake as a lamb is going into the Democrats and the Republicans, the left wing and the right wing, but it's the same bird flying to the same destination, which is NWO. And that's exactly what this representative is speaking of. I'll read it one more time. It says, on the same platform, just days earlier, Representative Taylor Greene shared her own warning. this time about a cashless economy, because the scriptures say man's goings are of the Lord, and the scriptures say the answer to the tongue is from the Lord. So this was a warning from Yahweh Shem Yahushua that the Spirit of the Lord put it on this different representative to say this, because ultimately this is what the apostles, the prophets, the elders, on down to the least of us, all right, have been speaking of in biblical prophecy. All right. The Lord says, surely he will do nothing but he revealed his secret unto his servants, the prophets. So it says, this time about a cashless economy, quoting Bible verses and referencing Revelation 13:16-17, Green claimed that digital currency initiatives like the Genius Act signal the MOTB system, a biblical motive that signals the end times. And this is what the apostles and the elders on down to least of us have been warning you of, all right, for decades upon decades, man. Okay? Leading up until this point, 2025, the hopeful year of our deliverance and the destruction and judgment of Esau, Edom, man. Well, now the Genius Act has been put into legislation, all right? And digital currency is on the rise, man, all right? A major black swan event can happen at any moment to usher in this system, man. And now you have top representatives of our government, all right, of America, saying the exact same thing. Okay, so wake up, Jacob. So it says, I am not voting for the MOTB system, she wrote, in opposition to efforts that would modernize digital ID and financial systems. So it's out there, man. It says, in her post, Representative Green tied the push towards a cashless society to the biblical MOTB, but many scholars dispute that interpretation. But guess what? Yahweh Shem Yahushua and his will shall ultimately stand. Not the will of man, not the will of these different scholars and these different naysayers. No, biblical prophecy is going to stand. And biblical prophecy says this. So it says, verse 12, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, which America does. It's a carbon copy of the Roman Empire. The plebeians and the patricians coming back as the Democrats and the Republicans. The eagle, all right? The military strength, okay? It's Rome all over again, all right? The language of the law, Latin, okay? It's Rome all over again. So it says, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him and caused the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed, right? Because Esau, Edom came back into power, all right, around the 1400s, a Renaissance period, and that deadly wound was ultimately healed, okay? Up until now, like the scriptures say, it was loose for a little season in the book of Revelation, all right, around, I believe, the 20th chapter, all right, where at the end of that little season where Esau, Edom, his lies and his forgery and his fraudulent activity is being exposed throughout the earth, even by his own system. His own system is exposing him, like the scriptures say, they shall make their own tongues to fall upon themselves, man. Psalm 64:8, so they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. And that's Esau, Edom. The system is crashing against itself, all right? His legislation, which goes into lying in wait, all right? His amendments, which are ultimately subject to change, okay? They're all imploding, man, okay? Verse 13, and he do a great wonder so that he make it fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, which Esau, Edom did that. All right, little man and big boy, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. All right, Esau, Edom did that with his technology. All right, but Yahweh Shem Yahushua said he created the smith that bloweth the coal. And so did Yahweh Shem Yahushua gather up these nations in their might and their military just to be taken down and broken without hand. So it says, verse 14, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles, which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. And that's what Esau, Edom does, all right, through this system, all right, through those miracles, like the scriptures say, those working miracles. And when you go into that word working in Thessalonians, it goes into energia, which goes into left hand power, all right, given to God or the devil, pretty much, roughly paraphrasing that. All right, which that left hand energy, which left goes into sinister, has been given to the nation of Esau, Edom, through the left-hand son of God, which is Satan, man. All right, that's how Esau, Edom has been able to work and concoct and conspire against the heavens, but ultimately is going to be taken down because the Lord built you up this way, man. all right, just to be taken down in your system. And even your system is now showing against itself, man, all right, that it is what it is ultimately according to biblical prophecy. So you could do nothing against the truth, but only for it. So it says, verse 16, and he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a charagma in their right hands or in their foreheads. And this word here goes into charagma, charax, all right, which goes into incision, all right, in your skin. That's going to be used as the earth's new currency, all right, to buy and sell. You're not going to be able to get money out your account, pay your bills, get food, unless you have this in your right hand or your forehead. And these elites have been massaging this theory into the earth, all right? They've been massaging this into the earth pretty much. You got Kikius Maximus, E. Musk, J. Bezos, B. Gates, all right? Pretty much trying to implement this system. You have people that have these different brain illnesses and diseases and things like that. They're able to now read and write using this C-hip, using this charagma, man. All right? So he's pushing it as a miracle on the earth. And guess what? It's the same thing he did with the juice, the vaccine, man. All right? That was a miracle. You're going to be immune to this. You already have an immune system that Yahweh Shemel Shai has given us, man. All right? And then what happened? Our people took it. Then they called it back. And now people are dropping dead behind it. Okay? So it says, verse 16, and he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a charagma in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the charagma or the name of the beast or the number of his name. You see? So now you even have representatives and government officials alluding to this prophecy coming to pass, man. This lady saying, man, I'm not voting for that. All right? This is biblical prophecy that's about to go down. So how much more the prophets that have been out, the apostles on down to the least of us, man. So Lord willing, this message was edifying. I'm going to give infinite honors and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harachak, Wadash. Double honors to my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to you, Akim, pushing out this truth across the four corners. Kwam Yasha Allah, Mighty Shalom.